And welcome back to Inform New Hampshire. My name is Rich Merritt. Before we get started, I just want to mention, please keep in your prayers Jerry and Sue DeLemus. 2.5 years and counting. Jerry's still in jail, an innocent man. Also, get involved with the nationallibertyalliance.org. Their goal is to restore the rule of law in America. And the only way they're going to accomplish it is with the people's help. If you go to their website, it actually says only the people can save America. I'm a firm believer of that. This is our country, our life, our Constitution, our government. Everything belongs to the people. And if the people don't stand up and smarten up and wake up and act like adults and take it back, then we're in big trouble. So check out the nationallibertyalliance.org and help out if you can. I'm going to show some videos today, and those videos basically are going to illustrate how corrupt our government is. But it's all about money, and I mean all about money. People will sell their soul for money. And if you watch these videos, you'll see. We can start with the first one. Kirsten, if you would, please.
We've never had a really big and hostile country come into our markets. Most of the international competition we have faced from Japan, from Germany, from the rest of Europe has come without a sense that behind it was a government that has sought confrontations with the United States on a regular basis.
The WTO, it's not based here. I mean, who in the United States is on the WTO? Does anybody know?
In 2001, China joined the WTO, the World Trade Organization, with the strong support of a Democratic president and a Republican-controlled Congress. Before the ink was dry on this free trade agreement, China began flooding American markets with its illegally subsidized and very dangerous exports, while the big multinational companies that had lobbied heavily for the agreement rapidly accelerated the offshoring of American factories and American jobs to China. Today, as a result of the biggest political shell game in American economic history, China has stolen thousands of our factories and millions of our jobs. Multinational corporation profits are soaring, and we now owe over $3 trillion to the world's largest communist nation. This was not how it was supposed to turn out.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
When William Jefferson Clinton was selling China's entry into the World Trade Organization to the American people.
If you believe in a future of greater openness and freedom for the people of China, you ought to be for this agreement. If you believe in a future of greater prosperity for the American people, you certainly should be for this agreement. If you believe in a future of peace and security for Asia and the world, you should be for this agreement. This is the right thing to do. It's an historic opportunity and a profound American responsibility.
In pushing for China's entry into the WTO, President Clinton embraced a doctrine dating back to President Richard Nixon, known in Washington circles as the policy of engagement.
Peking, historic site for an unprecedented meeting between East and West. President and Mrs. Nixon arrive, and Premier Zhou Enlai is on hand to extend an official welcome to the presidential couple. It's Mr. Nixon's initial move toward his self-proclaimed goal, a generation of peace.
Here, President Clinton offers his own vision of the goal of engaging China.
I don't believe it's right to crack down on people for their religious views or their political expression or because they want to be in an association like the Falun Gong. I don't think that's right. But I don't believe that we will have more influence on China by giving them the back of our hand.
In masterfully arguing for China's entry into the World Trade Organization, President Clinton promised the brightest of futures for both American workers and American manufacturers.
Economically, this agreement is the equivalent of a one-way street. It requires China to open its markets with a fifth of the world's population, potentially the biggest markets in the world. For the first time, China will agree to play by the same open trading rules we do. Never happened before. For the first time, our companies will be able to sell and distribute products in China made by workers here in America.
And by economically engaging China, both Democrats and Republicans argued this would ultimately democratize the Chinese dragon and free the Chinese people.
We have waged an intense battle in support of an important principle, and that is freedom. And the people of China and the citizens of the United States will benefit enormously.
After the victory vote, the Republican House Majority Leaders would celebrate the bipartisan victory with the cracking open of a ceremonial fortune cookie.
Not very good at these things. It's got a lottery number, no. It says, new American proverb. New prosperity awaits you because normal trade relations. Yeah! It's a confrontation of worldviews that we will win, and I'm looking forward to the future.
It most certainly will result in more unemployment in the U.S. and to the advantage of China. We're chumps.
So just how big of a chump has America been for supporting China's entry into the World Trade Organization in 2001?
It's like we're in the Super Bowl of globalization, and in fact, we're being taken apart.
And in this Super Bowl of globalization, when you tally up the score on human rights abuses and consider the plight of Tibet, the torture of the Falun Gong, and the crushing of religion and democracy, this much is clear.
The Chinese government is the world's worst human rights abuser on the planet today.
And when you tally up the score on China's rapid military buildup, this too is clear.
China is the only major nation in the world that is preparing to kill Americans.
And of course, when you count the jobs lost and factories gone and millions of Americans out of work.
American manufacturing has been in an absolute crisis over the last decade.
5.5 million manufacturing jobs gone.
57,000 manufacturing facilities closed in this nation.
So you're in a massive jobless recovery. You've got 28 million women and men who are in various stages of unemployment, twice the official number.
When you tally up all these scores, it's crystal clear that China's entry into the World Trade Organization has been both a losing and a very dangerous proposition, even as America has all but completely surrendered its manufacturing base to China.
China until today is a totalitarian regime, is a dynasty. No change at all, not republic. Not people's country.
We need to understand China better. We have this sort of glowy view of the trajectory of China's history. But what we have seen, especially over the last couple of years, is a China that is moving in the wrong directions on everything. And it's not just human rights, it's its relations with its neighbors, its economy, you name it. This is a country that is going backwards in all phases.
I hear people referring to the PRC or the People's Republic. Well, let's be honest. As soon as we accept that phrase, we're joining China in the reality distortion field. It's a lie. It is not the People's, and it is not the Republic. Stop saying that. It's Communist China.
We've got to spread the word that there's danger out there, and we need to change our policies. We can no longer afford to treat a communist dictatorship in China as we would treat any other democratic institution, because they have treated us like fools for doing that. And that's because we have been fools.
Okay, that was pretty good, huh? The only place you can shop now is Walmart. Everything is made in China, so I think that worked out good for us. 5.5 million jobs lost, 57,000 manufacturing companies lost. I think our politicians, Democrat and Republican, did a good job for us. It also mentioned that China is the largest human rights abusers on the planet Earth. This next video is going to kind of demonstrate that for you, how they harvest body parts. So if we could get into that, I'd appreciate it. Kirsten, thank you.
We call it a new form of evil on the world. It's never been done by any government in the past, to take a large group of its own people and say, we're going to kill you without any kind of a trial, and we're going to sell your vital organ parts.
An individual from the United States or Canada, for example, could anticipate undergoing transplantation on a specified date.
It's a crime against humanity. It's abhorrent, and it needs to stop.
If you're going to go to China and you're going to get a liver transplant during the 3 weeks you are there, then that means someone is going to go schedule an execution, blood type and tissue type the potential executee, and have them ready to go before you need to leave.
Starting at the end of 1999, the number of transplants taking place just exploded.
China carries out more organ transplant surgeries than any country besides the United States. But unlike other countries, China has no effective organ donation program. That's because culturally, Chinese people believe the body must stay intact even after death. China's Deputy Minister of Health, Huang Jiefu, has suggested that there are 7,000 transplants every year from the deceased, and that more than 90% come from executed prisoners. The number of criminal executions in China is classified as a state secret, but Amnesty International's estimate is about 1,700.
The numbers just didn't add up. It's just too large of a discrepancy there.
With only 1,700 executed criminals and no effective donation system, where do the rest of the organs come from? Zhao Shuhuan was put in a Chinese labor camp because she practices Falun Gong.
我每到一个劳教所，他都会让我们检查身体，给我们抽血验血。每个劳教所都是。
We estimate that in the period between 2000 and 2005, there are 41,500 transplants which have no other explained source.
I'm absolutely convinced that over a long period from 1999 onwards, organ harvesting from prisoners has been taking place, especially with Falun Gong.
他领了到他那个马三家教养院有医院呢，那个医院就是做我真理解好像就是验尿啊，抽干戈。
Doctors would come into the camps, they would look in their eyes, they would examine their organs with ultrasound and the like, and they were the only people in these camps who were medically examined thoroughly.
In 2006, two Canadians, international human rights lawyer David Matus and former Secretary of State for Asia-Pacific David Kilgore, started to investigate allegations of forced organ harvesting in China. They found at least 52 points of circumstantial evidence, including websites of Chinese hospitals offering matching organs in less than a week.
It's just not possible unless you have an unlimited source of organs. And these are people who are alive. We're talking about live donors. The actual transplant surgery itself was the form of execution. These were living people that were killed for their organs.
Makes you think of some grotesque restaurant where you go in and you pick your lobster in a tank. But these are human beings we're talking about.
The military's making money off of it. The hospitals are making money off of it. The middlemen are making money off of it. And we talk about money. We're talking about a multi-million-dollar operation.
Journalist and author Ethan Gutman decided to carry out his own independent investigation.
We had witnesses of disappearances, people who'd been examined and then had disappeared, busloads, entire prison wards which had been emptied out. The signs began to look like something much, much bigger.
Like Tibetans and house Christians, Millions of Falun Gong practitioners are being persecuted in China for their beliefs. In 1999, Communist Party leader Jiang Zemin issued orders to break them financially, ruin their reputations, and destroy them physically. Since then, thousands of Falun Gong practitioners have disappeared without a trace.
What happened to the disappeared? They, as far as we know, they're still there in these camps. Many of them are killed through organ harvesting, but the rest are still there, and they're the organ data bank for China.
Around 1999, there were around 150 transplant centers. 6-7 years later, they had 600 transplantation centers. This is an increase by 300% within such a short period of time without an organ donation program.
Military hospitals get watched in China, okay? There is nothing they can do without the party central taking note of what they're doing. Was this run by triads? No, this is run by the state. This was murder, and it came from the state.
This is a crime against humanity. We should do our best to identify those specific individuals who are engaged in this and put them on the list of people who deserve to be brought to justice.
In 2006, when this came out and we realized that they were killing prisoners of conscience for their organs, it was doctors that took the front line in trying to stop this.
Every day there are a dozen of people that are executed or killed for organs in China. So we have to bring out the message, we have to inform medical doctors to stop this practice.
But it's not only the medical community that's getting informed. The U.S. State Department mentioned allegations of forced organ harvesting in its annual Human Rights Report on China in 2011 for the first time. On October 3rd, 106 U.S. congressional representatives signed this bipartisan Dear Colleague letter to the State Department, demanding they reveal information on organ harvesting that they may have obtained from their sources in China.
This barbaric human rights abuse must be stopped, but to stop it, we first have to further expose it.
And with even more petitions circulating online, the issue is starting to get worldwide attention, but more needs to be done.
Yeah, how did that work? Pretty good. Clinton and the Congress lobbied China into the World Trade Organization. A lot of people who own businesses no longer own them. Walmart owns just about everything now. That's the only store around. You can buy cheap merchandise. And then you have, if you want a body part, call up China. They'll kill one of their citizens and give it to you. It's not a problem. These are the type of people we're dealing with. And I'm only illustrating their greed. This next video is about our own people here. One of them is, well, the main one is Nancy Pelosi, who I personally think is brain dead. But Harry Reid is off the hook here because he's not in the video. Harry Reid and his kid, is a bar member son, tried to get ranchers off their land so he could sell the land to China for solar farms in Nevada. This is wonderful, this stuff. Only in America. Anyway, if we could roll the next one, we'll watch Nancy Pelosi in action.
Nancy Pelosi has led the House Democrats for 16 years, including a stint as Speaker between 2007 and 2010. Her wealth places her neatly in the top 1%. She is one of the richest members of Congress, with an estimated net worth of over $100 million. You can see why from this little story. On March the 18th, 2008, while she was Speaker, Nancy Pelosi bought $220,000 of Visa IPO, or initial public offering, stock. She got it a day before it was publicly traded, a privilege reserved for a select group of hand-picked investors. Here's where it gets really swampy. 2 weeks before she was given special access to the IPO stock, a piece of legislation called the Credit Card Fair Fee Act of 2008 was introduced in the House. It would have cut Visa's revenues and hurt Visa's stock price, something that then Speaker Pelosi now had a direct interest in. By a remarkable coincidence, this piece of antitrust legislation, normally such a priority for Democrats, never made it to a vote on the House floor. When this shady transaction was previously reported, Pelosi's office published a classic non-denial denial, including the following laughable claim. Leader Pelosi has been in the lead advocating for Congress to act in the public interest and not the special interest. Laughable because for 16 years, Leader Pelosi, aka Queen of the Swamp, has presided over one of the most blatant ways in which special interests get what they want in Washington, the institutional corruption of the congressional dues system. As House Leader, Nancy Pelosi is heavily involved in the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, or DCCC. Democratic members of Congress effectively buy their seats on congressional committees by raising money for the DCCC. Helpfully, there's a menu with prices. According to a leaked DCCC document, in the 2014 election cycle, for a regular committee member, it's $125,000. For a ranking member of the Judiciary Committee, it's $250,000. And for the ranking member of the powerful Financial Services Committee, it's $500,000. Of course it is, because that committee regulates the richest businesses, Wall Street. At the time the document was leaked, the ranking member of the Financial Services Committee was, wait for it, Maxine Waters. That election cycle, she raised over $150,000 from donors in just two industries, securities and investment and commercial banks. They were two of her top 5 donation sources. For this year's midterms, Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats have chosen "For the People" as their slogan, and their platform pledges a crackdown on corruption in Washington. The irony is richer than Nancy Pelosi herself. Now, let's move on to Senator Ted Cruz. You may be thinking, why go after a conservative senator in a tight race? Well, because of what he himself said endlessly in his 2016 presidential campaign. One of Ted Cruz's signature phrases was taking on the Washington cartel of big business and its lobbyists. Here's a reminder.
As you know, this summer I wrote a book called A Time for Truth, where I talk a great deal about the Washington cartel, the career politicians in both parties who get in bed with the lobbyist and the special interest and grow and grow and grow government.
Senator Cruz serves on a number of powerful Senate committees, including Armed Services, Commerce, Science and Transportation, and Judiciary. All of them bring in donations from the very same corporations that Cruz regulates. You might say he's in bed with them. One of his biggest donor sources is defense contractor Lockheed Martin. They gave Cruz nearly $30,000 this election cycle and over $70,000 in the last cycle. Those dollars seem to be working. Ted Cruz recently bragged about pressing President Trump to stick with Lockheed's infamously expensive F-35 fighter program. Quote, "I took the lead in pressing both the President directly, but also Secretary of Defense Mattis on the incredible value of the F-35. I bet you did, Ted. That's how the Washington cartel works, right? Ted Cruz's position on the Commerce, Science and Transportation Committee is a money spinner too. In the last year or so, he raised over $370,000 from the transportation industry. But the Washington cartel isn't just about donations. It's about the revolving door between Congress and lobbying. In fact, it's about people like David Polyansky, Ted Cruz's chief of staff, who then became president of Clout Public Affairs, a lobbying and public relations firm. Here's David Polyansky boasting on his own company website about what his firm does for its clients. Quote, "Each and every day, we will have an agenda, we will have a structure, and there will be no tactical decisions made that don't help advance the overall strategic objective, influencing things in Washington, influencing things back at the state capitol." Sounds a bit Washington cartel, no? Now, David Polyansky is upset that anyone would call him a lobbyist. In fact, he's so upset, he sent us a bullying letter from his swamp lawyers, Claire Locke, telling us not to call him a lobbyist. Big mistake. I don't respond well to bullying swamp lawyers. So let's really examine what David Polyansky, Ted Cruz's former right-hand man, is saying. He boasts to clients about his firm, quote, influencing things in Washington, but gets his lawyers to threaten us with legal action if we call him a lobbyist. All right, Mr. Polyansky, I'm very happy to tell our viewers that you are not a lobbyist. You're just the president of a firm that goes around influencing things in Washington. By the way, there are more Ted Cruz staffers spinning through the revolving door. But after that lawyer's letter, I just wanted to spend a bit more time on the non-lobbyist David Polyansky. And of course, this couldn't possibly happen because he's not a lobbyist, but if by chance you or anyone you know feels like you've been influenced by David Polyansky, do let us know at swamptips@gmail.com. On top of all that, lobbyists have donated over $46,000 to Cruz's re-election campaign this cycle, and over $100,000 since he took office in 2012. One of them, David Schiappa, donated $1,000 in December 2017, which is interesting because Schiappa works for the lobbying firm Duberstein Group, and one of the clients Schiappa was assigned to represent is defense contractor Northrop Grumman. Do you remember what White House Budget Director Mick Mulvaney said? If you're a lobbyist who never gave us money, I didn't talk to you. If you're a lobbyist who gave us money, I might talk to you. Well, here's another lobbyist who gave Ted Cruz money. On March the 29th, 2017, Ed Rogers donated $2,700. He's the chairman and co-founder of BGR Group, which in the same year he gave money to Ted Cruz, earned $570,000 lobbying on behalf of the Kurdistan regional government and another $500,000 lobbying on behalf of the government of Saudi Arabia. Did Ted Cruz talk to him? Did his staff? We don't know because meetings with lobbyists are not reported. Ted Cruz lectured us endlessly about the corrupt Washington cartel while being a fully paid-up member of it. He's taking money from lobbyists for car and plane companies regulated by his Senate Transportation Committee, and from lobbyists for defense contractors getting billions of dollars from his Armed Services Committee. He's even taking money from lobbyists for foreign governments, not to mention the revolving door between his office and the swamp. We reached out to Senator Cruz's office for comment. Their statement includes the following. While every single member of Congress engages with lobbyists in some capacity, the test is whether they are beholden to them. And Cruz has proven time and again that he's not. He answers to the Texas voters, and his actions back that up. Well, you decide. Ted Cruz's statement did not respond to or deny any of our specific points tonight. Ted Cruz attacking the Washington cartel. Nancy Pelosi saying she's for the people. What giant hypocrites both of them are. Nancy Pelosi.
You got to love it. One of the things I wanted to mention briefly is that the Bar Association, who controls our corporations, they do control our corporations. There's a bar member behind every corporation, but they also control and monopolize our courts. And there are laws, antitrust laws, against that. But lawyers who practice law don't pay any attention to the antitrust laws when it comes to them. I wanted to say that because it's all about greed, it's all about money. You won't find justice in your courts. They extract money from you. It's all about money, corporations. Anyway, it angers me a lot because people don't see it and they keep continuing to vote the same people into office. We have to smarten up or we're going down. Please share this video. If you like us on Facebook, hit the like button on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, and you can watch us. Please share this, and thank you. Have a nice day.